Here, we can do it. Well, nearly over the hump.
Yeah.
Getting there.
It's
Come on,
still ways to go, yeah.
You're watching Fox and Friends First. I'm Jillian Neely.
And I'm Rob Schmidt. Thanks for waking up early, starting your day with us. We begin with a Fox News alert and a game changer from North Korea. What could be a game changer? The rogue nation test launching a new kind of intercontinental ballistic missile.
That missile capable of striking anywhere in the U.S. President Trump now promising consequences.
A missile was launched a little while ago from North Korea. I will only tell you that we will take care of it.
All right, Amy Kellogg live in Milan with the new developments this morning. Amy.
Hi, Rob and Jillian. Well, I have heard it pointed out that Kim Jong-un's statement that they have finally achieved their goal of becoming a rocket power does leave open the possibility that he could declare that testing is no longer important, and this could be an opening for Kim Jong-un to come to the table. But that is hardly something that the international community can bank on. We certainly don't know what's going on there or in the mind of the North Korean leadership. These were the images beamed to the North Korean people at daybreak, a glorious montage of missile launches past. Yesterday's was the highest flying missile to date and the most potent, a nuclear-capable ICBM called the Hwasong-15. Hwasong means Mars in Korean. It flew 600 miles at an altitude of 2,800 feet, but analysts say it could have traveled 8,000 miles, putting the American capital in its range. The missile fired yesterday landed in the Sea of Japan. This was the order to launch the Hwasong. Kim Jong-un signing it wrote, quote, "Fire with courage for the party and country." Impossible to know what was on the minds of the North Korean masses out in the cold, watching the launch on large screens. We do know the South found the test extremely troubling and responded.
In response, the South Koreans have fired some pinpoint missiles out into the water to make certain North Korea understands that they could be taken under fire by our ally. But the bottom line is it's a continued effort to build a threat.
This certainly casts a shadow over the upcoming South Korean Winter Olympic Games. In the meantime, the UN will have an emergency Security Council meeting later today. Rob and Jillian.
All right, Amy, thank you. With politicians ramping up talk of military force following that missile test, one expert now saying President Trump's sanctions are key to tamping down this threat.
Asia analyst Gordon Chang joined us earlier this morning. Here's what he had to say.
President Trump has his September 21 executive order, which tells the world, you do business with North Korea, you don't do business with the United States. So we need to enforce that. And that isn't not only about countries that sell things or buy things from North Korea, it's also countries that handle the money for North Koreans. And that basically is China. So we need to start imposing costs on North Korea's backers, because we can strangle North Korea and we don't have to use force to do it. So there's so many non-forceful options. We heard Senator Lindsey Graham yesterday with all this war talk, and that introduces a lot of fatalism into the global conversation. We need to start talking about sanctions instead.
We have another Fox News alert and relief for a lot of people in one Florida community. A 51-day nightmare appears to be over. Living in fear of a serial killer. That's what many have done for quite some time. Just hours ago, Tampa police arresting 24-year-old Howell Donaldson III in connection with 4 murders in the Seminole Heights neighborhood of Tampa. The break in the case coming when Donaldson showed up at a local McDonald's with a gun. Court documents say he gave it to a coworker and said he was going to leave the state. The gun matched shell casings found at the crime scenes, and officers also found bloody clothes in his car. Donaldson has no criminal record in Florida.
In the battle between darkness and light, light has won. We're bringing someone to justice who doesn't deserve the right to walk amongst us. Justice will be served, and then the process will occur when this individual rots in hell.
All 4 victims were randomly shot and killed near bus stops. This grainy surveillance video near one of those bus stops, the only clue police had for weeks. A possible break in a frantic nationwide manhunt to find a 3-year-old girl. Police say Mariah Woods went missing from her North Carolina home Sunday night after her mother put her to bed. The FBI now pleading with the public, trying to determine if these photos you see on your screen right here, if these are of the toddler taken at a Walmart Monday morning, nearly 50 miles from her home. They are now searching for the woman seen carrying the child.
Priority number one is to find Mariah, and we are asking the public's help in the local and surrounding community for anyone that has had contact with the family from Sunday on to please contact us with any information.
Mariah's family claims several adults were home when she disappeared, including her mother's boyfriend, who says he told her to go back to bed around midnight. Little Mariah wears leg braces, so her family says she could not have walked off alone despite the back door being unlocked.
All right, some drama on Capitol Hill. The top 2 Democrats boycott a meeting with President Trump just days before a possible government shutdown. This after one of the president's tweets. And this as the Senate takes a major step on tax reform. Doug McElway joins us live from Washington, D.C. with where Republicans will now go from here. Doug.
Well, the president heads to St. Charles, Missouri, Rob, today to tout tax reform after a madcap day in Washington in which the tax bill moved forward in the Senate at the expense of what little bipartisan spirit existed in this badly divided city. The tax bill squeaked through the Senate Budget Committee 12-11 on a straight party line vote. The good news for Republicans is that Senators Ron Johnson and Bob Corker, who had expressed some reservations about the bill, voted yes.
We had a unanimous vote on the tax bill, and it goes now the next step, and I think we're going to get it passed. I think it's going to pass, and it's going to be very popular.
Debate in the full Senate could begin as early as this afternoon. But yesterday started off on a really contentious note when the president tweeted, quote, meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is, they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked, are weak on crime, and want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. Well, that, as you can imagine, did not sit well with Senate and House Minority Leaders Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, who boycotted the White House Big Four meeting.
Given that the president doesn't see a deal between Democrats and the White House, Leader Pelosi and I believe the best path forward is to continue negotiating with our Republican counterparts in Congress instead.
Then the president added a little salt to the wound by keeping Schumer and Pelosi's name tags in place at their empty chairs next to the president, while McConnell and Ryan conspicuously sat nearby. Pelosi tweeted afterwards, his empty chair photo op showed he's more interested in stunts than in addressing the needs of the American people. Poor Ryan and McConnell relegated to props. Sad. Whether the tax bill passes in the Senate may again rest on Senator John McCain. He has said a lot of things trouble him about the bill, and his maverick reputation is looming very large. Rob?
Yeah, I see a lot of stunts on both sides of that, and we will analyze this further. Doug, good to see you very early this morning. Thanks so much.
Okay.
President Trump pointing the finger at Democrats, saying they will be to blame if the government does shut down next month.
When that happens, I would absolutely blame the Democrats. You look at the military, we want strong funding for the military. They don't. So many things. As an example, they want high taxes. We want cut taxes. So there's a lot of big differences. So we'll see what happens as to shut down.
Matt Schlapp, contributor for The Hill, says the left can thank Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer for tossing their case out the window if they try to place blame on Republicans.
The politics of blaming the Republicans for shutting down government, which they do very effectively, it's going to be very hard for them to blame Republicans when they can't even show up. I think this was a stupid tactical mistake by the Democrats. The president dealt with them on the last budget deal and came to an agreement with the Democrats over the Republicans. He's actually shown a preference to listen to them, and the happiest people today were Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who didn't have to worry about that rug being pulled out from under them again.
Megyn Markle is wasting no time jumping into the role of a royal.
Well, who wouldn't, right? The now former American actress and her new fiance, Prince Harry, will visit Nottingham on Friday, kicking off a 6-month tour of the UK.
Now being boots on the ground in the UK, I'm excited to just really get to know more about the different communities here, smaller organizations who are working on the same causes that I've always been passionate about under this umbrella. I think it's just the beginning of the...
There's a lot to do.
The couple will attend an AIDS charity event and meet with teachers working with at-risk youth. Something funny there, Rob?
Yeah, the whole thing's just funny. Royalty just cracks me up. All right, 11 minutes after the hour, Senate Republicans now one step closer to passing tax reform.
When the President of the United States tells you he's going to fix your problem, he asks for your vote, I was more than willing to give it to him in conference here today.
Well, that was one of the dicey ones we weren't sure about. So what will it take to flip the other holdouts? Why our next guest, a former Republican congressional candidate, says for some, it's personal and not just political.
And the best news you will hear all day, how you can turn water into wine in your own home. Can you sense the excitement in my voice? You don't want to miss this. We're coming back.
Stay close to me.
All right, Republicans now one crucial step closer to tax reform as key holdouts advance the bill after sitting down with the president.
Every time I've been with President Trump, he's been very engaged, very gracious, quite honestly. He certainly brought a couple of us over the top that had some real reservations, at least for this committee vote.
The ball's moving in the right direction. I was a no here yesterday and this morning, but I've had good discussions. We don't have this deal closed yet, but it's getting awfully close.
Swinging back the president's way now. Here to weigh in is Republican strategist Noel Nickpour. Noel, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
We want to get right to our first fancy graphic that we want to pull up here to show some of the concerns that these handful of people have. And this one right here, the impact on the deficit and the national debt, which has exploded in the last 10 years. You've got McCain, there's Flake, there's Corker, and there's Lankford on the end there. There's four of them there watching the money because we're already $20 trillion in debt. This is a problem. They want this thing to be deficit neutral for a number of reasons, also because they don't want they don't want to filibuster on this thing, right?
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that Republicans, at least our platform on the economic side, is we focus on, reducing that national deficit. We're deficit hawks. And I can understand, some of the people that were holding out, and until obviously today, Corker, and you've got McCain, and you had Murkowski, and you had Flake, and Langsford. And a lot of them are holding out for different reasons. We were talking about the small business cuts that they didn't.
They don't think those go as deep as the corporate rate, which they want to drop down to 20%
Absolutely.
A great deal for that.
Yeah, and I can understand that. That's something to be a flag, or carry the banner for the small business person. I understand that. The national deficit, I understand that. But if you look at the majority of people that are holding out, I really felt a couple of these were personal, because you've got to look at John McCain, who we now know him as this guy.
Right. Doesn't like the president.
No.
Flake doesn't like the president.
Doesn't like him. I mean, they've had some, some
Corker too, but Corker's kind of getting on board. And let's show this. Our second graphic does show the people that are worried about the impact on small businesses. That's Johnson from Wisconsin and Daines from Montana. And these two guys say, we want the little guys to have a great deal in this tax bill too.
Right. I understand that fight, and we all do. It's not just the corporations that should enjoy tax reform. It should be the small businesses. And everybody said this. There's clips, for days saying, America's built on the backs of small businesses.
Right.
So I understand that.
And let's look here. There's the other big one here that also I think could incorporate John McCain as well is the repeal of the individual mandate, messing with Obamacare, trying to tie that into the budget. That's Collins in Maine, who we hear a lot from, opposing a number of things that the president does. And there's Jerry Moran. She's a very moderate conservative, and let's assume he is as well, though I'm not too sure of his particulars. But the deal is they're worried about health care.
Yeah.
John McCain was that crucial vote against it too. So I think you can throw McCain in there as well. They're worried about. So if they take that out, they might get those two back.
I think you're right.
If they don't mess with the repeal of the mandate.
I think you're right. But what I don't like seeing are it's the same gang. It's almost like the anti-Trump gang.
Right.
Because it's the same bad actors that keep coming back, and we can't get anything passed because
and they hold hold it hostage.
It's the same names.
Yeah.
When you look at the people that are opposing, you know, what Trump's got or what the Republican Party, you know, we're trying to be unified. It's the same. It's McCain. It's Flake, and it's on.
And there are some personal vendettas in there, and the president has made some enemies. Yeah. And you see how it becomes this mess that McConnell has to deal with of trying to satisfy all these different needs. I mean, what a job.
Hard job.
He doesn't get paid enough.
Oh, no.
Noelle, thank you so much for coming in this morning. Sure. We appreciate it. Sure. All right, Jillian, over to you.
It is 19 minutes after the hour. The war on Christmas has officially begun after this ad urging worshipers to find the perfect gift is banned from the public. Carly Shimkus is here live with how the church is fighting back. Stay right there.
Look what you made me do. Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me. Ooh. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what.
All right, Christmas Grinches. CNN boycotting the White House Christmas party, but could the White House get the last laugh on this one?
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115, here with the burning response from Sara Huckabee Sanders.
It looks like the spirit of Christmas can't even soften the feud between CNN and the Trump administration. So the network says they are skipping the annual White House Christmas party for members of the media. Now, a spokesperson said, in light of the president's continued attacks on freedom of the press and CNN, we do not feel it is appropriate to celebrate with him as invited guests. We will send a White House reporting team to the event and report on it if news warrants. Well, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, she celebrated this news on Twitter, saying, "Christmas comes early, finally good news from CNN." So, of course, people on Twitter who don't like the network use this as an opportunity to sound off. Bill on Twitter says, "I'm sure the White House staff is going to lose sleep over this one. Tragedy, yawn." Kim also says CNN is kind of like that relative you had to invite, but you really don't want to come anyway. Yikes. So a lot of attacks on CNN over this.
Speaking of attacks, what's the latest in the war on Christmas?
Yeah, this is a pretty big one. So the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Washington is suing the D.C. Metropolitan Area Transit Authority because they rejected this ad that promotes a website. And the website really is all about finding God and giving back during the holiday season. Now, in a statement from the Metro, a spokesperson says, in 2015, Washington Metro Area Transit Authority changed its advertising policy to prohibit issue-oriented advertising, including political, religious, and advocacy advertising. So the reason this isn't going to be outside buses over the holidays is because they say it's religious. Now, the Archdiocese says that this is a violation of their First Amendment rights. A lot of people, as you can imagine, are chiming in on Twitter. Claude says, looks like it's not politically correct to be a Christian. Another Twitter user says, glad they're suing. The ad doesn't mention religion or the reason for Christmas, but now even if Christians want to buy ad space, they're denied. And one last tweet coming in from Anne, who says, that's what Christmas is. Good Lord, has everyone lost common sense? So pretty controversial. You know, the president, one of his platforms was bringing back Christmas, bringing back saying Merry Christmas as a normal thing. So this kind of speaks to that attack.
They're trying to stay out of the PC nightmare that is the world today. I can see both sides of that.
Even something as simple as this.
Yeah,
it's kind of sad.
It certainly is. Carly, thanks.
Thanks, Carly.
Thanks a lot.
It is 25 minutes after the hour. Outrage as the mastermind of the Benghazi attacks skates on the most serious charges against him. Why the victims' family members say the Obama administration is to blame.
And Ivanka Trump showing the world what it means to be a champion for women.
Fueling the growth of women-led businesses isn't simply good for society. It's good for our economy.
All right, our next guest, who wrote the book on First Families, explains why history will remember Ivanka as a powerful woman of the White House. That's next.
This is a total miscarriage of justice.
The father of one of the Benghazi victims slamming the justice system.
That's right. This after the mastermind of the 2012 terror attack, or the so-called mastermind, is acquitted of murder, taking the death penalty off the table for him.
Marian Rafferty is live in Los Angeles with reaction to the verdict. Marian.
Good morning, Rob and Jillian. Well, that verdict sparking nationwide outrage. The ringleader behind the Benghazi attack that killed 4 Americans spared the death penalty. Why? Because being the mastermind behind the brutal deaths apparently doesn't count as murder, at least according to a jury. Ahmed Abu Khattala convicted of terror charges but found not guilty on 14 others. The 2012 attack on the diplomatic compound resulted in the death of U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens, State Department Information Management Officer Sean Smith, and Contract Security Officers Tyrone Woods and Glenn Darty. The victims' family members lashing out, calling the verdict a miscarriage of justice and putting blame on the Obama administration.
An accessory to a murder is guilty of murder legally just as much as the person who pulls the trigger. The previous administration granted this foreign terrorist American constitutional rights, and that should not have happened.
Sean Smith's mother, Pat, telling Fox News she was not surprised and not happy with the verdict, and goes on to accuse Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State at the time, of having no heart. CIA Director Mike Pompeo calling the verdict a small measure of justice for the terror inflicted upon the patriotic men and women stationed in Benghazi. Khattala faces up to 60 years in prison, but so far a sentencing date has not been set. Rob, Jillian?
We will wait and see. Marianne, thank you. A bombshell report from the Air Force revealing that dozens of criminal conviction cases like the Texas church shooters were not reported to the FBI's gun database. The Inspector General reviewing 60,000 cases after the service failed to report the history of Devin Kelly's domestic violence. That failure enabled him to purchase the weapons that he used to kill 26 people during that Sunday worship. This as a family who lost 9 relatives in that shooting files the first lawsuit against the Air Force, accusing them of negligence for this part in all of this. Overnight, Congressman John Conyers spotted flying coach on a plane back to Detroit, igniting rumors that he might be heading home to resign. We don't know yet. It comes as top Democrats ramp up pressure on the veteran lawmaker to bow out following a sex scandal avalanche. An aide says House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi is trying to convince the representative to step away from Capitol Hill after defending him last Sunday. This isn't Conyers' first rodeo, though, with the Ethics Committee. Back in 2006, he was accused of using former aides as personal servants, but the investigation was closed because Conyers, quote, took responsibility for that. Stranded tourists finally have a way off of the island of Bali, where a massive volcano has been erupting and spewing ash and some lava. The airport finally reopening there just hours after being shut down for more than 2 days, thanks to all the ash that's been spewing from Mount Ahung. Aviation officials also downgrading the warning level, those alerts forcing thousands to evacuate off of that Indonesian island. Bali's second largest airport could reopen as early as tomorrow morning. Jillian.
Ivanka Trump making her first solo international trip to India, promoting women's rights around the world.
Fueling the growth of women-led businesses isn't simply good for society, it's good for our economy. I encourage everyone here to come together, learn from each other, and find new ways to lift barriers in our society so that women are free to innovate, empowered to succeed, and able to leave our children a brighter future.
So how is Ivanka's role helping this administration? Here now to weigh in is the author of Unusual for Their Time on the Road with America's First Ladies, Andy Oak. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So how important is she to this administration?
Well, very. She proved herself an effective and valuable asset on the campaign trail, and now that's bleeding over into her father's administration. She's a very capable and successful and intelligent businesswoman, and I think a perfect ambassador on the global stage for women empowerment.
You know, when you look at the climate we're in right now and how many women across the country are speaking out about sexual harassment and the different allegations, how important is it, do you think, for a lot of people in this country to look up to a woman like Ivanka Trump in that administration?
Well, very important. Again, her success in the business world, her strong figure in her father's administration takes this women's empowerment movement and to a new level, a new popularity. It's a hot button topic, and for her to go out on the global stage on this and travel internationally and represent her father's administration, again, is a huge asset.
What has she done so far that has impressed you the most?
Well, I think it's just the way she holds herself and her style. You know, politics is a very rough and dirty game. You can really get beat up in the press, and her father certainly has been at the brunt and receiving end of some of that, as any president is. And when you keep that firm outward appearance and represent yourself and your father's administration like she is, it's a good message to the world and a good message for women.
Do you think she's made her mark already, or do you think she's just scratching the surface of what she's going to do?
Well, I think she's scratching the surface, but coming out and being a part, presidential families have been a part of their administrations since the beginning. You know, Jefferson's daughter stepped in the third administration to be his hostess, and on and on and on throughout the time of our country. And for her to take that role and step up and move into the White House in an office space shows that she will take and continue to take and make a mark in this administration as a very important member.
You know, you mentioned that she's not the first person, a family member, as part of an administration to come out and to be able to take her stance and to be a leader and to be a role model. Who else has impressed you in the past?
Well, you know, the Carter sons, most people remember Amy Carter because she grew up in the White House, and we've always got our attention on young children. But the Carter sons were hugely effective in his campaign as part of the Peanut Brigade, and they came out and helped their father in ways that helped got him into the White House. So they were very effective. There's been other family members in the past administrations, daughters that have stepped up to be hostess. Harriet Lane, for her bachelor president uncle, James Buchanan, she came in and was made one of the largest marks in bringing in art and culture to Washington, D.C. and the National Gallery of Art. So these family members, these wives, these daughters, these cousins who have stepped into these roles in the past have made significant marks that last into modern times on America.
Absolutely. Andy Oak, we will continue to watch and see what she does. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff there. And let's talk about some weather. Janice, at least here on the East Coast, it's kind of warm yesterday.
A little weird, right? We're going to get into the 60s today. Now, there are some changes brewing next week. We might have some changes coming, but for now, you don't like change, Jillian, right? Up towards Canada, that's where the really cold air is. But right now, I mean, a lot of the country, in some cases, 20 to 30 degrees above average. And the radar, we have a little bit of rain moving through the central U.S. Not a big deal. Nice looking day across the East Coast. And then we have our storm system moving into the Northwest. This has been sort of an ongoing situation for them. Not a big storm system here, but we're going to see a little bit of rain and some mountain snow. And this will be our next weather maker. But as we look at the computer models heading into next week, yes, there could be some changes, maybe some cold air, maybe a little bit of snow. But today's forecast, we will enjoy it for much of the country. Northwest looks a little unsettled, and then South Florida, parts of the Mississippi River Valley, some showers. But that's a pretty good looking forecast, if I do say so myself.
Yeah,
Back to you, Jillian, Rob. Maybe a little bit of snow before Christmas. What do you think?
I'll take a white Christmas.
I mean, that never happens. We'd take that all day.
Sometimes it happens.
I
we'll
can't
see what I can do with my magic powers.
All right, work on that, Janice.
All right, 38 minutes after the hour, police say a serial killer has been caught. The man accused of murdering 4 innocent people in cold blood, now behind bars. We are live at police headquarters with the brand new charges. Next.
Plus, campus craziness taken to a whole new level. One university offering a white racism course on your dime. Why our next guest says classes like this make it even harder to fight real racism.